that story and your experience because it's so common. I hear this all the time because anxiety is so often underneath the surface. Like we can be very functioning while still having anxiety. It also can impact you in terms of where you live and what's your culture and your family dynamic. And
Mhm.
mental health is something that's kind of more normalized, something more stigmatized. There's a lot to it. So I want to put that
Right,
out there
absolutely.
too, that this is a very complex topic. But what I usually recommend for parents is to assess how often and to what extent their teen is suffering. So, that example, and some of what you mentioned, I ask parents that. So like let's say there's a teen that is feeling nervous before a test. They're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling stressed. It's a big deal. It's their math final, but they're able to go and they take the test. They can continue to, business as usual with their other classes. They can get through the day, they can attend their extracurriculars and kind of move forward. Okay, we're not going to want to just like completely overlook that, but like we're going to maybe that's kind of more standard teenage behavior, as opposed to the teen, let's say, who can't sleep, a wink the night before, like what you were mentioning, Erica, or throws up before the exam, or, says, I'm so overwhelmed and anxious about this, I can't even complete my other assignments from my other classes.
Mhm.
Or I don't want to do any more of my extracurriculars, or I don't want to go out with my friends anymore, that it's starting to
Mhm.
trickle over into other parts of their life. We're going to want to take a closer look, or let's say, again, like throwing up, having a panic attack, any of those types of symptoms, of course, we're going to want to pay attention to. And we're going to want to see how often this happens. So
Mhm.
let's say
Mhm.
a teen has that type of response once a year. We're not going to want to overlook that at all because it is serious, but we're going to take a different approach to the teen that happens to once a month or once a week or several times a month or maybe even every other month. Like we're going to assess differently because some of this is part of life. It is natural to get stressed
Mhm.
and overwhelmed, but again, how often and to what extent is this
Right.
occurring?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a really great assessment. And one of my YouTube videos, I highlight the difference between stress and anxiety and how stress
I
is
love
an
that.
everyday, it's a factor of life, right? And
Yeah.
so stressing about the math test can fall under the category of stress, but does the stress end when the math test is over? Right? Or does it carry out? Because anxiety, it finds another thing to be stressed out about. It'll pick something to
Yeah.
hyperfixate on or focus on so that it never subsides. Where stress is more episodic. Like there's this thing and it's
Mm.
important, and once it's over,
Okay. Yes, that's a beautiful way of describing it. I love that. And it's really true and it's hard to differentiate the
mhm.
two as well. And again, I know I keep repeating this, but teens are an expert communicator, so it's going to be
And they're not
difficult for
experts on
them.
what this really is. Like they're
Right.
feeling some of these things for the first time. The taking something as seriously as a midterm or a final, as they're getting into high school and school is feeling a little more serious and the stakes are a little higher because
Yeah.
this is going to go on my application to college and determine where I end up going and if my dreams are going to happen. Where in elementary school, middle school, that isn't, the stakes aren't as high. I mean, they still need
Right.
to study and do well, but it feels different. So this is the first time life is feeling really real. So
Right.
they don't even know how to manage that. So sometimes
Hmm.
this is they don't have the skills yet, or is this, do they have chronic anxiety? So
Hmm.
these are a lot of great questions, but this kind of takes me to a question I have of when is it time to ask for more help? When is it, hey, this is my teen, going through development and experiencing everyday life stress? Or is this the cry for help that my teen needs a little more support?
Right.
How would you suggest parents to assess that?